Welcome to The Explainer. What if there was a single repeating glitch behind every fallen civilization? Every time a spiritual path goes wrong. The source material we're looking at today calls this the optical failure, and it says it all comes down to one critical command.
So here's where it all starts. Qur'an 19:12. O Yahyā, hold fast to the book with strength. Now the framework we're exploring says, hang on, this isn't just nice advice or some kind of metaphor. It's presented as an activation command, like flipping a switch that powers up a hidden circuit in reality itself.
So what does this all mean? Well, the idea is that this isn't just religious instruction. It's describing the literal physics of how things work. And failing to get this right, the source material argues that's the single fault line, the one recurring error behind every major civilizational collapse. It's the exact moment when the light of guidance just shatters.
Okay, so let's get into it. What exactly is this 1912 switch and, what happens when it fails? Let's break it down.
So on one hand, you've got holding with strength. And according to this framework, that has nothing to do with just, preserving old rituals or texts. It means you're actively engaged with it. You're living the truth of it. But then you've got the failure, the optical breakdown. And that's when people start holding the book with their ego, with their identity. It stops being a source of light and becomes, a weapon or a shield to protect their own power.
And here's the absolute crux of it. When that switch fails, the potential for guidance, what the source calls light, it doesn't just, flicker out and disappear. No, it actually collapses into its destructive opposite, fire. All that potential for real illumination turns into destructive zeal. And the community? It just becomes an echo chamber, endlessly repeating that first original mistake.
So this collapse, it creates a power vacuum, and something always rushes in to fill it. In the Qur'an, that something is called Thamūd, and really it just means false authority. It could be anything, a political ideology, a whole system like Pharaoh's who literally said, I am your Lord Most High. It could even be your own ego setting itself up as God. But here's its weakness, its Achilles heel. It cannot stand up to simple, direct questioning.
All right, so if this false authority crumbles under questioning, how do you actually do it? Well, the source material lays out what it calls the anti-Thamūd protocol. It's like a step-by-step method that was first taught to the prophet Abraham, or Ibrahim, and then retaught for everyone. Step 1 is pretty simple but profound. You question authority, all of it. The story of Ibrahim is the classic example. He looks up at a star, then the moon, then the sun. And our source says these are basically symbols for all the ideologies and systems we follow. And Ibrahim's conclusion for each one is the same. I don't love things that set. They're temporary. They're not the real source.
Okay, now this next step, this is where it gets really interesting. After dismissing everything that's temporary, Ibrahim performs what's called the orientation switch. He says, I turn my face toward the one who originated the heavens and the earth. Now, according to this framework, that's not just a poetic declaration of faith. It's an action that literally triggers a legal shift in the fabric of reality.
And what does that legal shift do? It activates what the source calls an inheritance law. Think about it. The logic is super clean. Once you turn away from all the temporary, flawed things that are vying for your attention, you become legally eligible to inherit what's permanent, what's real. It's not magic. It's presented as a direct consequence, a lawful outcome.
So the final step in this protocol is just a masterclass in logical takedowns. You probably know the story. Abraham goes and smashes all the smaller idols, but he leaves the biggest one untouched. And the source material is clear. This isn't just random destruction. It's a brilliant logical trap. Because when the people come back and ask, who did this? He can say, well, ask the big one. It forces them to admit their main idol is powerless. Game over.
And this is where it all snaps back to the beginning. That first command, hold the book with strength, isn't just some random idea. It's the hidden key. It's the activator for this entire protocol. You have to be in that state of active, engaged seeking to even begin this process of questioning and reorienting yourself. Without it, you can't even start.
So, this brings us to the protocol's stunning conclusion. We've talked about fire, that destructive force of coercion and fear. What happens to it when the false authority it serves just gets completely dismantled?
So remember, fire in this context is all the tools of that false authority. The fear, the coercion, the punishments, all of it. But here's the thing, its power isn't its own. It's entirely dependent on the Thamūd it's protecting. So once you've logically exposed that system as a fraud, the actual physics of the whole situation have to change.
And this leads right into that famous climax of Ibrahim's story. His people, furious that he's exposed their system, throw him into a massive fire. But he's unharmed. Now, the way this framework presents it is fascinating. It's not a miracle in the sense of breaking the laws of nature. It's the direct result of those laws. It's the lawful consequence of the protocol being executed perfectly.
Think of it like this. The fire lost its jurisdiction. Its authority to burn was tied to the false authority of the idols. Once that authority was proven to be zero, the fire's power legally became zero too. It wasn't magic, it was a legal consequence. A single, logical, almost predictable result.
Okay, so when you put all these pieces together, the source presents this whole thing as a game of books. It's not messy or mystical. It's a clean, logical, repeatable process for taking down falsehood.
So let's just run through that clean chain one more time. 1. You take the book directly, with strength. 2. You correct your orientation away from anything temporary. 3. That activates the law of inheritance. 4. You use a witness strategy to expose the false authority. And boom, 5. The fire is neutralized.
And what's so critical to understand here is how direct this whole protocol is. It's designed to bypass all the extra layers people usually add on: mythology, tradition, priests, gurus, whatever. It's a direct connection, operating straight from the primary text.
So what's the big picture here? What is the ultimate takeaway from looking at things through this lens? It's about seeing this as a law, not just mythology.
Right. The final point from the source is that this whole story of Ibrahim isn't just a story. It's presented as an operational mechanic, a repeatable process that's available to anyone who follows the steps. When the book is taken correctly, the fire has no power, the idols self-destruct, and inheritance is basically inevitable. We're all inside this optical experiment.
And that leads to the ultimate conclusion here. This isn't about believing in an old story. It's about understanding and applying what's presented as a fundamental law of reality. And the source gives the ultimate example of this optical failure, the claim, "We killed the Messiah." That's when you mistake the appearance for the reality. You sacrifice the living truth just to protect your dogma. That is the 1912 switch failing in the most catastrophic way possible. That's light becoming fire.
Which leaves us all with a pretty provocative question to think about. When you engage with a sacred text, any sacred text, are you just holding a book filled with stories? Or are you trying to activate a law of reality? In other words, are you being a vessel that transmits light or an echo chamber that just amplifies fire?